Hello, everyone. This is Leanne from Of Love and Shiplap and the founder of Sublimation Graphics and Tutorials on Facebook. Be sure to come join our Facebook group or subscribe to our YouTube channel, depending on where you are watching our video. You will find those links in the video description. Tonight's tutorial is on how to create this Doodle Gnome in Affinity Designer. This is a fun and versatile project that is really open-ended, and it's also perfect for laser cutting and vinyl related projects. Now, please keep in mind that we are specific to the garment printing industry, so we're not able to assist in those other types of projects, but I do try and remember to mention that the techniques that are being used can also be relevant to those industries. We are going to be using all curve layers for this project, which is exactly what is needed for laser cutting and for vinyl type projects. Now, you've probably seen gnomes like this around because they are very, very popular. And what's great about them is that you can tailor them for every holiday theme, anything you can think of. My original gnome version was this Valentine's Day gnome, and I created a bunch of variations with different hearts and envelopes and balloons so that there would be different little clip art elements that could be used in projects, and I've even used them in my own digital designs. One of my favorites is this super cute package sticker that I offer a physical package sticker of on my website. You know, I made him with a cute little envelope and balloons, just a fun design idea. You can also make this set with interchangeable arms. This is something that is also makes it very customizable for different holidays and occasions and creates the ability for you to have your own gnome set that you can have with different types of objects. Now you can see I have a pumpkin here. This was from another design tutorial that we did in Affinity Designer that you can also find on our YouTube channel. We have many different videos where you can learn a lot of project specific types of things. But if you are interested in learning literally everything there is to know about Affinity Designer, how to make the most dynamic designs, work the tools, and create finished products and know how to sell, then come join the Affinity Designer Digital Graphic Design Masterclass for Sublimation. This is a 100-hour, super in-depth, progressive style masterclass. It is perfect for beginners and those of all ages and learning levels. It doesn't matter if you've never even opened the software. I promise that when you get through this course, you are going to feel like a pro at using this software. Let's go ahead and get started because I know a lot of people have been looking for an updated version of this, and I am excited to show it to you. I'm going to start by opening up a new document. We will go to File and then New. Anytime you are starting just a clip art style, you want a minimum of 3600 pixels by 3600 pixels, and you want it set to 300 dpi. For sublimation only, your color format should be RGB/8 and your color profile should be sRGB IEC 61966-2.1. That is the current most current profile for RGB. Keep in mind that technology is always evolving and these things can change down the road and in the future. Your document settings are different from your print settings. For those of you who are following along and in the sublimation industry, your ICC profile is printer related, not document related. These are two different things. And we cover this type of information in depth in our masterclass. So again, be sure to come join us. Use the code SUBTHAT to save $30, and we would love to have you. Once your document is set up, you can go ahead and hit Create. Now, one of the things I love about vector-based artwork is that so much of it relies on different shapes, and you can create a lot of things with zero drawing skills, thanks to all the different shapes. So we're going to start with our body of our gnome, and for that, I'm going to use my tier tool. If you come to this last shape tool with the little white triangle, you can click on that triangle and it'll pop open some different options. Now you could choose to use the tier tool, the triangle tool, or the trapezoid tool for the body. And actually, now that I'm looking at it, I think I'm going to go with that trapezoid tool to give me more of that nice wide rounded bottom that I want for my gnome. Once you have your tool selected, you can click and drag to size it out on your document space. Now you're just kind of eyeballing it. You're going with what you think is going to be the best placement for it. I know that this gray is a little hard to see, so I'm going to come over here to my color panel and I'm just going to swap the black and white, and I'm actually going to choose no fill on the stroke for right now. That outer circle is our stroke, inner circle is our fill. If you can't see some of your panels anywhere that you are working, just come to View, Studio, and make sure that those are selected. And the same goes for the ruler at the top. You can find that by coming to View and checking Show Ruler, or any of the other settings that you may need. I'm working on a Windows computer. The Mac layout is pretty much the same, but also keep in mind that my studio layout is laid out for my personal workflow, and yours may look a little bit different. Now, once we have a rough size idea for our gnome body, we're going to make some adjustments to this overall shape. As this trapezoid is, we can't adjust the corners that we would like, so we need to convert it to a curve so that we can use our curve-based tools. I'm going to select Convert to Curves from the context toolbar, and then I'm going to start by coming to the corner tool. This is the one that sort of looks like two arrows going back and forth. Next, all we need to do is click and drag from one corner node to create a rounded look. Round it until you feel it is round enough. I have moved mine to 308.4 pixels, and then I'm going to do the same on the other side. Now I do want them to match, so if I can't quite seem to get it just right, I'll just click on that radius box and enter in the exact measurements. Next, I am going to select my node tool, and I'm going to adjust the lines to sort of round them out. Again, just trying to create a more rounded look for my gnome's body. So I'm going to kind of pull that one out a little bit and pull this line as well. And then I can choose to drop down my bottom layer. You'll notice that you get these handles. You can use those as well if you would like to adjust them independently. Back on our corner tool, if you select that, you're going to want to then choose Bake Appearance. Don't make too many changes before doing the Bake Appearance. And also, if you want to adjust your corners a little bit more again, you can simply select those nodes and move them in. When you're all said and done adjusting it, you should have something that looks just like that rounded body of your gnome, and then select that Bake Appearance option, and that is going to solidify those curves so that as you resize things, those corners are not going to alter themselves. From here, if you need to make it a little taller or shorter, you can do all of that by simply moving your boundary box. All right, I'm going to get this centered on my page, and the next thing I'm thinking about is my boots. Now, my little shoes of my gnome, if we click back over, we've got these little boot-looking shoes, are going to be pretty simple. We can do those with our rounded rectangle tool. So I'm going to select my rounded rectangle tool, and I'm going to click and drag. And then see this little tiny red node? That little tiny red thing that you see there allows us to adjust it. It's also based on these settings in our context toolbar. So we're going to round it down so that it to the last point that it goes, so that we get this rounded look. And then we have our shoe. I'm going to make this one gray just so we can see it a little bit better. I'm going to bring it all the way down, zoom out in my navigator so you can see a little bit better. Just sort of line it up and size it till it looks about right. Now I'm going to want my shoe behind my other layer, so I'm going to move it down, and that'll give me a little bit better visual to see if I need to resize it. I'm going to make mine a little bit bigger. And then you can select that layer, right click on it, and choose duplicate. So now I have two, and you're just going to click and drag that layer over so you can see your two shoes. And now from here, I can say, okay, do I need another one? Do I need to make them bigger, or do I need to just change the alignment of them? I think I might want to make mine just a little bit bigger. And then I'll come down to my transform panel and I can see that I changed that width to 942.6. So I'm going to lock my aspect ratio there. And then I'm going to come here and do 942.6. And they should be about the same. Okay, this one is 3 pixels off. So we'll just come here and we'll change this 4.1 or 415.1. There we go. So now they're both the same size. You can continue to adjust them until you are content with where their placement is, keeping in mind that we are going to want to be able to add some type of little shoe marks. So we don't want them too far under. I'm going to click and drag to select both of these. And then I'm going to right click and group them. This is just going to be temporary, but I'm going to come to my alignment tools, which is this one that sort of looks like a bar graph. And I'm going to choose align horizontally, making sure it's set to align to margin, and then hit apply. That's just to make sure I've got them centered on my page. And from there, I can choose to ungroup that again, and I can simply click on the name layer to rename it to make this easier. So this is left shoe, and this is right shoe. And then we can click on the other curve layer, and this is our body. Okay. Pretty easy to get started, right? All right, our next part that we are looking at is going to be our upper arms, and believe it or not, we can actually just continue to use our rounded rectangle tool. So I will select my rounded rectangle tool again from my tools panel and click and drag to create that. And once again, select that little red node in the corner and drag it in. I'm going to bring this over to my body and just rotate it by grabbing a hold of that extended node that allows us to rotate. And from here, I can simply resize my arm, trying to visualize maybe where the shoulder would be and where those elbows are going to come across. Now, keep in mind that it doesn't matter what is in this space because we're going to have a beard there, so it's going to cover it. We're not going to worry about adding a face. You can always add a face if you want to, and just keep in mind what the appropriate proportions are for something like that. So I think that right about there is pretty good. Maybe move it in just a little bit. And then we'll be able to create our arms, our forearms extended over. And with that in mind, I do think I need to just angle that down a little bit more. So we can go ahead and right click and duplicate this one as well. And what we're going to do is come to our options up at the top here, and we're going to use that rotation tool that says flip horizontally. And this is going to help keep that same angle. And then we'll bring it across until we see that red lines at the top and the bottom. That's letting us know that we're lined up. If you don't see those lines, they're called guidelines. You want to come up and check this magnet icon and make sure that is selected. Also make sure that all of these are checked except for show snapping candidates. You don't need that one selected, just the rest of them. And that'll give you those little guidelines that you can work on. Once again, just to be sure we are centered, we're going to click and drag both of these and we're going to group them. And then we will come to that alignment panel and choose align center and then hit apply. And again, we're just trying to make sure that everything is centered properly over top of our gnome. You can then ungroup that layer and click on the name again to name them. This one is going to be my left arm and right arm. You could choose to write upper arm if you want to get really technical. And I'm also going to make these in black so that they match my body. The next thing I want to do is add my let's do our forearms and our mittens, because then we'll be able to see if we are ready to combine our body or not. So our forearm and our little mittens here are going to be a teardrop tool, and then we'll use a rounded rectangle times 2 to create the little mittens. So I'm going to zoom in just so this is a little bit easier to see, since this particular object is a bit smaller. We will start by selecting our rounded rectangle tool, and once again, just click and drag to bring that out, and just kind of resize it to the size that looks about what a mitten size would be on a gnome. Everything that you're doing doesn't have exact measurements. It is mostly eyeballing it and then correcting it based on what your eyeball perceives as being the appropriate size. For this rounded rectangle, we want to come up to this context toolbar, and we're going to uncheck that single radius option. Now you'll be able to adjust each of the corners. Our 2 on one end, you are going to just bring all the way out to the corner, so they're nice, sharp 90-degree corners. And then on the other 2, I'm going to bring them all the way in so that they are nice, rounded, and sort of look like a mitten. Here we go. Bring that one in a little bit more. And yes, that is good. When you're set, you can click off just to sort of see what it looks like. And I'm good. I'm happy with that nice rounded shape. We're going to select that rounded rectangle tool again, and we're going to click and drag. And this time you're going to bring that node in all the way again, that little red anchor point all the way in with all of your corners to create your thumb. Then you can grab that white node and just rotate it and resize it and just really kind of get it in place so that when you select off of this, it looks like a mitten. So I'm just going to move mine, kind of get a better visual for my mitten here. Okay, I think I'm pretty happy with my overall mitten size. I think I'm just gonna make it a little bit shorter and maybe make my thumb just a hair thinner. Possibly move it down a little. I live in North Carolina. I haven't had to wear mittens in a long time, so sometimes when you're visualizing things, it's a little trial and error. Okay, once you are happy with your 2 shapes overlapping each other, you are then going to select both of them in your layers panel, hold down your control or command key and click on both layers. Then come up to the top where you see these little boxes and click on this one with the plus sign. When you hover over it, it says add, and it is going to merge it into one convenient layer. Now we can bring this down and we can make our forearm and try and get them to all be the appropriate size. So I'm just going to kind of put it in the middle of the body for right now. And to create that forearm, I'm actually going to use my tier tool. So come over to that shape tool, click on that little corner, white corner there, and select the tier tool. Then click and drag down and to the right to create that teardrop. The first thing I want to do is see these little red anchor nodes that you've got here, or adjustment nodes. We're going to take this one that's on the side and you're going to drag it all the way up, or almost all the way up. I'm going to go all the way up so that I have this nice spear looking sort of shape. Not a spear, but nothing that I can think of to refer to this shape is appropriate to say on a video. So this shape, this very rounded teardrop shape. So next thing we're going to do is we're going to line it up with that elbow. And we definitely want it to kind of sit over top of it. And we can adjust it however we need. So if you need to make it a little bit wider, that's fine. If you need to make it a little bit longer, that's fine as well. You can adjust it so that it overlaps that section perfectly without you being able to see anything behind it. And I'm just going to make my mitten blue so that we have some differences here visually. Now I need my mitten on top, so all you need to do is move it in your layers panel to the top. Your layers are in order of how they appear on your screen. Front to back is top to bottom. So I'm going to adjust that adjust my mitten and get it over top of that forearm, and then really just take a moment to adjust both of these and figure out where the middle ground is. So for one, I kind of think my arm needs to be a little bit thinner. So I'm going to move that just like that, and I'll move it up and over with my keyboard. Then I'm going to line up my mitten. And I think my mitten might actually be just about perfect size-wise. I just need to get it centered over top. I'm using my arrow keys on my keyboard because it's a little bit easier to adjust. I am thinking that maybe a little bit wider on the mitten and a little bit shorter on my arm. So I'm just going to shrink that down just a hair and bring this down. Jasper's having a dream in the background in case you guys are wondering. He always does like to find an opportunity to be part of the videos. All right. So once you think you've gotten it about to the size that you would like, now you got to look and just see like, okay, is this the angle I'm going to want it? We might need to adjust it, but let's get them in place first. So we're going to select both of these layers. And again, you can use your control to select both of those. And then you will right click and duplicate. Don't click off, but then choose move to front, which is this one at the end with the orange box on top of the other two. So that way those will stay together. And then still without clicking off, you're going to choose flip horizontal. And then you can simply click and drag your other arm over. I'm looking for that red line, just like we see it now on the top and bottom, letting me know that I am lined up evenly for this as well, because that's just going to let me know that my arms are in the same place. Of course, I have trust issues, so I always like to group and then recenter them as well and make sure that they are. That's just my own personal neuroses. So the question now is whether or not our arms are too long. And I think that they might be. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to select both of those, and we are going to group it, right click and group. And then we can simply shrink it down and get it about where we would like it. So we're only going to work on one at a time, and then we'll duplicate it. So we've got this one a little bit further out, and I'm going to come into my group and select that teardrop, and I definitely want to make it a little bit wider. So I'm going to widen it and then move it back into place over top of that elbow, and then I'll adjust the mitten as well so that this is wider, longer, fits my space a little bit better. Make sure that you're selecting it in your layer there. Rotate that just a little bit. Okay, so now let's zoom out and see, is that working a little bit better? I think that we're still a little bit long, so I'm going to select the whole group and just sort of move it sideways. And then I can come in and make any other adjustments I need to my shapes here to make sure that we're getting the mitten look that we're looking for. Mostly it's just this mitten that's seeming a little off. Okay. The last thing I want to check is this the right angle of the arm that I'm going for? And I do think that it is. So I'm going to actually delete those other two layers here. So just select both of them using your control or command key and clicking on each layer, and then check delete. And then with this group, I'm going to go ahead and right click on that and duplicate, flip it horizontally and move it into place. And now we've got much better space in between this for whatever objects we might want to put in his hand. And again, I'm going to adjust it and get it into place. And when I'm looking for that green line that you see over there on the left, that's letting me know I'm lined up with my upper arm curve. And then my red lines at the top and the bottom are letting me know that both of these are matched together. So all very important. Now you can actually ungroup those and click on those layers and rename them. So this is left mitten, left forearm, and then we'll ungroup that other one. right forearm, and right mitten. Because we're going to want to add different types of colors and fills and things like that, I do like to keep all of mine separate and then group them later on. Now, looking at this, I think that I have my arms where I would like them to be. So I'm going to select all three of those layers, right arm, left arm, and body. And I am going to select all three, again, hold down Control or Command and click on all three layers. And then I'm going to choose that add function again from that Boolean operations, and it will now become the body curve and just help clean up our layers panel a little bit. Next, our gnome needs a beard. The beard is sort of like the main focal point with one of these gnomes. So that is going to take up most of this space and sort of fall in between these arm layers here. And then we can really just add a nose to that. To create a beard, you could use your pen tool and you could create a custom beard, just like we're about to do when we create our gnome's hat. But I actually prefer to just use my teardrop tool. It's just that much easier. So I'm going to select my teardrop tool. I'm going to make this one some kind of really light gray shade so that it'll show up really well. And I'm going to click and drag to create it. And I want to start with one really big teardrop. So let's go ahead and flip this vertical so that it's facing down. We did that with our arrangement tools at the top here. And I'm going to just sort of bring it into the middle here. And I'm going to drag it down, make it nice and wide, giving myself a good visual as this is my starting point for my whole beard. Now, you need to have your shape tool selected over here. So now that I have that selected, we can actually adjust this curve by pulling on this center node. So you can have it go in either direction by pulling on it. I'm going to bring mine over pretty far because we're going to be adding a few layers of this beard. So that's going to be my first layer, and I'm going to leave mine in a point. If you didn't want to leave yours to a point, you could choose to convert to curves and then use that corner tool to select that corner and just sort of click and drag to give it a little bit of a rounded look like that. But just be sure that if you do that while you still have the corner tool selected, that you select Bake Appearance. I'm going to undo that really quick. You can undo things by doing Control or Command Z or coming to Edit and choosing Undo. So I've undone my changes so that this is back in a shape. And we can actually just duplicate this layer and manipulate it, or you can create new teardrops. But essentially, you're going to create them so that they sort of flow in different directions and create the shape of a beard. I'm just going to right click on that and choose Duplicate. Here's my new layer. When I move it over, I will make this one a little bit skinnier, a little bit shorter. I'm just going to rotate it out. And I'm going to bring it over so it overlaps. And then that one I am also going to right click and duplicate. And this one I will flip horizontal and kind of create the same effect on the other side. And then choose if I want this one to be shorter or longer, maybe a little wider. And as long as it's still in that shape format, as long as it says the name of the shape next to it, you can still click that shape tool and you can choose to adjust your little nodes to shape this different ways as well. And you can also move the point with that third node that's there. And you can decrease the roundness of that bulb by moving the other one. This allows you to just create a little bit of diversity in your overall shape of your beard. So I've got my sort of like my base layers, I guess I would call them. I think I want this one to be flipped in. So I'm just going to try and flip horizontal and rotate that and see. Yeah, I like that a little bit more. Maybe this one, just bring it out a little bit. Okay, we are looking for a relatively full beard, but your beard can be whatever you choose to make it. There is no right or wrong way of making your beard. I do want to add a few more that sort of look like mustaches out here. I'll start fresh with a new tier tool, click and drag, and then rotate it sideways. Select my move tool and bring this on up, and then come back to that tier tool and just make some adjustments there. based on the shape I'm trying to get out of that mustachy layer. Actually, even going to move that one up. And I will duplicate this one. And then bring that one down, make it shorter, adjust it however I would like. They don't have to all be the same. When you click off of it, like I'm doing, when you click off to the side, you can see better the shape that's it's coming together. So in that regards, I actually think I want the longer one on the bottom and this one more on top. Yes, I think so. Okay, once I'm satisfied with those two, I can select those top two, again, holding Control or Command and selecting those two layers. Right click, duplicate, choose that move to front with the orange square on top of the other two. And then select flip horizontal, remembering not to click off those layers, and then bringing it right on over to the other side. And we're starting to get a beard. Now you can choose to continue to add on to this. Maybe you want this to be a little bit wider. Maybe you want to add some more teardrops. There's no right or wrong way to create a beard. Once you have all of your beard pieces together, select all of these different layers and come up to that add function again and click on add. Click on the name this beard, and then drag it below in your layers panel so that it's in between your forearms and your body. You want to make sure that as you're moving things in your layers panel, everything is staying as its own layer. You don't want to have it clipped inside of a layer like this. If you see any grouping, just drag it out and make sure that it is a whole solid layer. Very important when you're moving your layers panel. I think I'm just going to make this a little bit taller and a little bit wider. And then I'm pretty happy with its placement here. So now I need a nose and a hat. I'm running out of a little bit of room here on my document, so I'm going to click and drag all of those layers, and I'm going to come to my transform panel. I'm going to lock that aspect ratio, and I am just going to shrink this down. I'm going to just choose one of my measurements. It's at 2975 right now, so let's move it down to like 22 and just create a little bit more space, and I'll move it back to where I was on my document. By selecting all of those layers and doing it that way, we are ensuring that everything is staying to the proportions we've already created. Next, we need a nose. So I'm going to select my ellipse tool, pretty simple, click and drag, make it pink, maybe like a really soft whisper pink, and size it so that it's a nice good focal point for my gnome. You know, gnomes, you often don't see anything other than their noses. Now, if you wanted to add a face to yours, then you could choose to add another ellipse that was behind your beard layer and have it so that you could see that flesh tone sort of popping out. Completely up to you if you want to add that. The last thing that we need is a hat. For our hat, we're going to select our pen tool. And you're really just going to kind of freehand this. So figure out where you'd like your gnome cap to start. I'm going to start mine at this beard point here. And then simply click to create a loose outline. Remember that we're going to move these lines in between. So each one of these is a different point that we can manipulate. And you can just sort of click and make a point at one point and then come back around and bring it on down and come up somewhere in the center here and make sure that you close it off where you started. Once you have sort of a shape that looks something like this together, you got to use your imagination. You will select your node tool and then you will adjust all of these lines. Now, if it's hard for you to visualize this, just come to your color panel and fill this with color. I'm going to make mine green. And then you can have a better visual to work with. You'll grab each of these lines and just round them out or in to create the look of a cap. And you can, drag and move these lines however you need to. So I kind of want this one to look a little slumpy, so I'm going to just bring it down there. And then I can click on this node and I can actually bring this part up to widen it. This is going to be sort of the peak of my cap before it swoops on down. So I think I'm going to want to bring this in a little bit and widen this one out. Maybe widen that one. We can always move our nodes by simply clicking on the nodes and moving those as well till we get the desired result. And then over here, I'm going to dip this one down like this and do the same with the other one so that my hat sort of swoops in this direction. Now you can click off so you can get a visual of it without the nodes and lines in the way, and then you can decide where else you might want to adjust it. With this one, I want to increase this and bring this down a little bit more because I want this to look like it's sort of indented on itself. And I also think I might want to move that node out. So I'm going to select that node and just use my arrow key to move it out. And then just shrink this down a little bit. That way it won't look like it's such a big indent. Okay. Once you're happy, you got a little cap shape. I'm actually going to move that one up. I want this to be more rounded. All right. There we go. Perfect. I am reasonably happy with this. You will fuss a lot, don't worry. And so now I just need a little poofy thing here. And let's see, we can do that with our cloud tool. So we're going to come to that shapes again. We're going to select our cloud tool. I'll make this just orange for right now. Click and drag to create my cloud. I want less bubbles. So come up here to where it says bubbles and just decrease that down to the number of bubbles that you would like. You can also use this radius option to dictate how your internal part is. So I'm going to bring mine in a little bit to about 70%. And I'm going to put this here. Now, let's just see if I need to adjust my hat a little bit more. I'm going to drag it below my nose there. So we can click on that ellipse that we created and we can name this nose. Give myself a visual. I think it's fine because it's behind the nose and that's kind of what we want. And then I'll click on my little poof and I'm going to name this hat poof and bring it down to my hat. And this will be my hat. Okay, so now we've got the foundation ready to go. We've got all of our shapes, and from here we just need to add our details and our colors, and if we want to add any kind of fill or digital paper, we can incorporate that. The first part is just getting all of these shapes together so that we have a strong foundation to work with. So the first thing I'm going to do is give all of my layers some kind of an outline because they just seem lackluster without it. I'm selecting all of them at once. I'm coming to my stroke panel. I'm going to make that outline black. I'm then going to come to my brushes panel. Down here in your stroke panel, you can choose to apply any brush to your stroke. So we want to select textured line style, which is the one that looks like a little paintbrush in your stroke panel. Your stroke panel might be up here. Mine's down here because that's where I like it. And then I'm just going to choose any brush that I would like. I really love this Frankentoon comic book ink set. I have linked this in the video description as well. This is one of my favorites. So I will select one of the line types. You'll notice that it's applied, and then I can control the width however I would like for that stroke. Now I want it to be there, but I don't want it to be overpowering. So I am going to just it right about there. I like this line stroke style simply because it gives it a little bit more of a doodle-like look. So I have added that, and now we've got a nice little outline on all of our layers. You can individually go into different layers and strengthen that outline if you would like. So the next thing that we want to do is add some accent lines that'll really help this look a little bit less blah. So I'm going to start with that hat poof. I'm going to click on that hat poof. I'm going to come to my color. I want my hat poof to be white or something close to white. we'll say I want it to be just barely white. So I'm selecting this color in my color wheel that is not quite white. And then I'm going to just zoom in on that area. I'll come to my navigator and zoom in. And now I want to add some different types of strokes in here. And I also really want to manipulate this shape a little bit. So I'm going to select that shape and I am going to choose convert to curves that appears. And then I'm going to select my node tool and I am just going to sort of move some of these indented nodes around. And then when I click off of that, we've got something that looks a little bit less perfect, and that is definitely what I want. Next, I will select my pen tool, and I'm going to create just some little lines inside, some little lines that sort of look like my edges here so that they create a little texture. So I'm going to start right about in here, and you just click your pen tool along and then switch over to your node tool and adjust the lines however you would like. I want this to give the illusion like this is crinkly or poofy, so this is going to work with that in a 2D fashion. Coming to my stroke, we always want to be applying in a stroke here. I'm going to choose that textured line style again, come to my brushes, choose one of those strokes from my Frankentoons comic book inks, and then just shrink this on down. And then of course you can adjust however you need to with these different nodes and lines. And then we'll just repeat the process until we've got the sort of look in here. And so I kind of like to make them look like they are getting a little bit smaller and going into each other. So I'll do another one that's a little bit on the outside here. Maybe I'll just create these two sections for this one. And I'll get it all adjusted how I would like it. And then choose that textured line style again with my brush for my brushes panel, and then just adjust the width. I do prefer to do these each individually because I don't want everything to look exactly the same in terms of the thickness of the line. And click off of that, do one more inside, and this one I'm just going to sort of do like in this direction, I guess. And then I'll select that node tool, give it some shape. I'm going to move that node over a little bit. There we go. And again, choose textured line style from my stroke panel, select the brush type I would like, and then adjust that width on my stroke panel. One of the reasons why I really like this stroke pan or this brush set is because it does have this fun doodly look, and it's just pretty quick and easy to be able to use. Now you can actually select all three of those layers. You hold down that controller command, click each layer to select them, and you can just group them together to make it easy for you to be able to manipulate them later on. Or you can come to Layer, Geometry, and choose Merge Curves if you need something to be one layer. That's especially important if you're planning on setting things up for SVG formats. I'll reiterate it again. I am mentioning it so that those of you who do that can work through it, but we do not cover anything that relates to SVG vinyl crafting type stuff in this group. We are completely dedicated to the print industry alone. So I'm going to name this my poof details. And we can bring it down with our hat poof, and we can actually clip it right inside of that layer by simply dragging it and clipping it inside. So I'm going to show you that one more time. You're going to select the layer that you want to clip inside of the other layer, and you just click and drag so that your cursor touches the name. So let me undo it one more time. You're going to grab this layer. You want to make sure your cursor is touching the name of the layer you want to go into, and that is clipping it inside of. Alternatively, you could have selected both layers and grouped them. Now let's have a look at our hat. Our hat definitely needs a little something because it's kind of blah as it is right now. First, I don't really like this green, so I'm going to make this red. Select my fill circle, make it red. All right, I'm happy with the red. And now similarly, I'm gonna add just some lines and maybe some like crinkle lines in here and up here. They give it that illusion that it's wrinkling. And we're just gonna add some lines to just amplify the shape. So if I come over to my original gnome, it's actually difficult to see on this one. So let's open up my Valentine's Day gnome. All right, so there on my Valentine's Day gnome, you can see what I'm talking about. I just added some little stray lines in here that really just help give this a little bit texture, like it just helps it look less flat. And that's all that we are trying to achieve. So we will select our pen tool and we can simply add a start and end node, select our curve tool, make an adjustment, adjust those nodes however you would like, come to textured line style in your stroke panel, come to brushes, choose my stroke, and then adjust my width as necessary to fit how I would like. Really simple. We're just going to add a few of these, and always make sure that when you're using curves that your fill is on no fill unless you're creating a closed curve. The hat is an example of a closed curve because we closed it off where we started it. I'm going to select that pen tool, keep on doing this just quickly. I'll add another one over here and select that node tool, pull it out, get it all lined up nicely how I would like it. Choose that textured line style, choose my brush stroke and adjust the width. And then I can always choose to move it a little closer to my edge if I want. No right or wrong way of doing it. It's all about what you like. I'm really just going to mimic what I've already created. So I will continue to adjust that. And you can adjust your individual nodes as well by clicking on those and lining them up. Good. Let's add just one more little swoop in here, and then I'll add a few, kind of like a V-shaped one over here. Just repeating those same steps here. We're adding just a few little nodes, using our pen tool to create our shape, selecting our brush stroke with our textured line style, and then adjusting the width. Now I want to add that crinkle in here like I mentioned, so I'm going to zoom in. And the first thing I want to do is create a curve that looks like it's extending from here inwards. So I'm going to start with my pen tool. I'm going to click right on that line and just bring one in. Come to my node tool and adjust it so that it lines up. I'll zoom in so you can see this a little bit better. So it's right on that line. Choose my textured line style, my brush stroke, adjust it accordingly. And just like that, see how it looks like it's actually flowing right on in? That's perfect. And then I will select my pen tool again, and I'm going to create just a V shape. So I'll start here, go to that point, then come over here, select my node tool, curve it in, choose that textured line or textured brush style, add the stroke that I'd like, adjust the width, and just make sure it all looks like it is cohesive and seamless. It does. Perfectly nice smooth lines there. And then we're going to do the same thing up here, and this is just helping us give our hat this look like it is wrinkling. So I'll select my pen tool. I'm going to start from this point, bring one in, select my node tool, adjust that line, choose my brush stroke to be textured line style, choose the brush stroke I would like, adjust it in. This one needs to be moved over a little bit because I want to make sure it is lined up right there, because that's the whole point of making it look a bit more cohesive. And then I am going to create that V again, do there, come here, and then come out. select my node tool one more time and just adjust those in. Choose my textured line style, add a brush stroke, shrink them on down. Now this is a little too curved, so I'm going to select that node there and I'm just going to move it and adjust those anchors there. Click off to see where we're at. I think we're in a good spot. So there you go, you've got this little crinkles here, and you can choose to add some more in depending on what you'd like. And then again, you can choose to either merge these curves or you can group them. Now, I will mention that for anyone who is doing something with laser cutting, a lot of this will just depend on if you're planning on having these marks as engraved layers or not, then you might need to set them up differently. I don't have a laser cutter. I can't help you guys with those things. But I know that there are many uses for this software beyond just sublimation. So keep an open mind and, weigh your ideas for what's the best way to merge everything together. So I'm going to select all of those, and I will again go to layer, geometry, and merge curves, just so that's nice. One group there. And then I'm going to bring that and I'm going to clip this one into my hat as well. Oh, it looks like I missed one right here. So I will just click and drag to clip that into my hat as well. And I will select both of these two layers. So our other curves and then the one that we accidentally missed. And go to layer, geometry, merge curves. And that makes it all part of that one. So see, when we check off, they're gone. We check on, they're there. And again, I clipped that inside of my hat so that everything is just together. And now that our hat is all done, we can actually select both of these and group them together. Or you can leave them separate if you want it just to be easy to make changes. But I do like to group things because I like to keep my layers panel cleaned up. It just makes it easier to find things. And then you can click on that group and call it hat group or whatever you would like. Next up, let's add some little accent lines on our nose. I'm going to move a little quicker now because I'm sure you guys are seeing where this is going. And if you enjoy this lesson, don't forget that we have one on a Doodle pumpkin and a Doodle Santa, I believe, on the YouTube channel. Again, select the node tool, bring that on out, choose textured line style, select my brush stroke, adjust however I would like this. You don't really need more than one or two on the nose. I think I have two on mine, so I'm going to continue on with the two. Select that node tool, drag it out, get it adjusted how I would like. Choose that textured line style, the stroke, and apply it. Oh, it's underneath my nose right now. That's why I can't see it. See that? So move it to the top. There we go. Now we can see it and get it in place. Now these two, I'm not even going to merge these two because it's just these two. I'm going to select both of those and click and drag to clip them inside of my nose layer. So to clip, again, you select those, grab their icons, drag them to the layer you want to put them inside of so that your cursor is touching the name and you see that 3/4 length rectangle. This is a one-step clipping action. It's one of the easiest and most useful things for you to remember about Affinity Designer. It's so fast and easy to clip anything. It makes doing a lot of projects foolproof because it's that easy. It's click and drag. Just make sure you're looking for your cursor to be touching the name and that 3/4 length rectangle. That's it. It's that simple. All right, we still got our beard and our gnome's outfit. So let's start with the body. We'll do the beard last. And I'm going to come to color and I'm going to give this fill a red too. So I'll just come to swatches and select the same red that my hat is in. This is going to show up under my swatches right here because I recently used it, but you could also choose a different color if you wanted to. I'll need to select my forearms and do the same. So select each of those and with the filled circle, select what you need. Now, here is where we're going to have to decide what kind of lines we want. For our forearms, we don't really need this line that's here that doesn't really look the way it should. We just need like a little crinkle line here and then an outline for sure, but it doesn't need to be fully over this section here. So what we're going to do to rectify that is we're going to select that right forearm, and we are going to come to that open circle for the stroke, and we're going to choose no stroke. And then we're going to do the same on the other one. And then also make sure that you choose no line style in your stroke panel, because if you have applied the textured line style like we did, removing the color won't remove the stroke fully. So make sure that you have that no line style chosen. Now we need to add in lines, obviously, because this is blending together, and that doesn't really work the way that we would like it to. But we want to sort of create lines that replicate that there's an elbow here. So what we're going to do is select our pen tool, and we can start right along the edge there, and we can drag it along and maybe bring it about to where we would want that elbow crease to be. So I'm going to say about there. Select my node tool and sort of drum this off. Now you do want it to follow the edge of this particular curve. In that regards, you could choose to make it gold or something that's easier to follow, just so you can see where your lines are going and try and streamline the process a little bit more. So I'm going to get this one right about to here, I think. And I'm going to come to my color, fill that line with black. Remember, it needs to be the open circle. And once again, choose that textured line style, and then my brushes and my stroke, and I can adjust it however I need. Zoom in so it's a little bit easier to see. But we're looking to have it line right up with that edge of that arm and help give us that illusion that the arm is bent here. So we need to add a little V shape here. And we're also going to want to add another stroke line in here, feeding into the elbow, just to really help this look like a whole arm. So let's start with that little V shape. I'm just going to go in and make that V very easily, 3 points. Bring this in just a little bit. Select textured line style, select my brush stroke, adjust the weight. There we go. And then make sure my placement is all on par with my other line. There we go. Let's add that line down here now. I'm going to select that pen tool. You don't have to outline the whole thing, but you can if you want to. I'm actually going to start at my elbow, and I'm going to bring this all the way down. Anytime you are going around a curve, you want to add a node at the beginning and end of a curve, and then you can taper it on. So we're going to have 3 nodes here. Select my node tool, bring this line out, and then just curve this one just a little bit. Again, select textured line style, select the width that I'd like, adjust it on in. Now, when we come back to that right forearm and change that color back to the red, and we zoom out, we can see how these lines are creating the look of an actual arm that's bent. So you want to zoom out and just see like, oh, do I need to sort of adjust this a little bit more? I think that this little crease part in here could be a little bit bigger. So I'm going to come to that, select my node tool. I'm just going to bring this out and bring the other one out. Maybe make it just a hair thicker, but not too thick. And then I do want to bring it down just a little bit so that that line here for the inner arm is going inside. And then zoom out, and I am good to go. Those lines that we just created, we can actually just select all 3 of them, right click, group, right click, duplicate, and with your duplicate layer, choose flip horizontal and bring them over and align them on the other arm. Because we duplicated our arms to begin with, their shapes and stuff are all the same. So we can just get that lined up how it needs to be. Perfect. And then we can select our groups and clip them inside of the appropriate arm. So this one is on our left arm or right arm. And we're going to click and drag to clip that inside of our right forearm. Again, Cursor touching the name of the layer we are clipping inside of, 3/4 length rectangle underneath, release, that is now in there. Same thing for the other group with the left forearm, and that keeps everything together. Now I don't really need to make any lines on my mittens. I think they're fine. So again, I can select both of those for my right and left and group them, and then I can just name this left forearm and select my right one and group, and this is my right forearm. All right, all we got left is our body and our shoes and our beard. We're coming along great. Shoes, super straightforward. We are just going to add a few little lines that look like a crinkle in the shoe itself. So I'm going to select my pen tool and I'm just going to draw a straight line. I'm going to select my node tool. I'm going to curve it. Now with this one, I want that stroke to be black. Choose the textured line style again, come to brushes and choose that brush stroke that I'm using. You can use any one that you want. This is just one I really, really like and highly recommend if you like doodle style stuff. But then I'm also going to select that filled circle and I'm going to make this white or even a light gray. And notice that this is just going to create that look like that there is something else there. I'm going to make it a little bit longer, but it fills in that space. Take that curve and bring it down so that it's over top of the shoe. We're working on our left shoe right now. So I'm going to have that down so it's underneath my gnome's body. And you can honestly just right click and duplicate that and add 2 or 3 of them fairly close together, but don't have them cover the whole shoe. And I like to sort of stagger my sizes because I just prefer that that's how the size looks, I guess. So I'm going to set mine up just like that. I'm going to take all 3 of those and I'm going to clip them inside of my left shoe, but not before I duplicate them. The duplicate ones, I will flip horizontal, drag across the screen. We can't see them because they're below the right shoe, so let's just clip them directly into our right shoe. So click and drag so that your cursor touches that name. And then make sure you have all 3 layers selected and just get them in place where you would like them. You might need to zoom out and make sure that you're looking about the same there. Here we go. We got our red line letting us know that we are lined up with that other set. And then these other 3 that are not clipped, we'll clip those into the left shoe. Boom, shoe's done. Last up is our body and then our beard. So body, very simply, I'm just going to put some lines here and here. That's enough to give out my little body some texture. Grab that pen tool, add in those 2 accent lines or 2 nodes to start to create your accent line. Grab my node tool, line it up so it looks good there. Make sure I've got black because that's the color I'm using for my accent line. Select the textured line style, come to brushes, choose the appropriate brush that I would like, and adjust the width accordingly for this. And then repeat the process again on the other side. I don't want them to be exactly the same. So this one I am going to start a bit higher up and let it taper off right about here. So I'm only going to do just those 2 nodes. Add more nodes as necessary for anything that you're working on. And textured line style again, choose that stroke, adjust that width. All right, and those 2 curves that we made, as you're probably guessing, you can select both of them, click and drag to clip them into that body layer, have your cursor touching the name, see that 3/4 length rectangle and release. And now those are part of your body curve. The last thing we want to do is add the same kind of lines to our beard and maybe some additional strokes as well so that our beard has a little bit of texture. For our body and our mittens, we're probably going to add, you can add different types of fill paper in with this. So in that regards, I don't necessarily need to add anything else to those, but my beard is pretty much always going to be white, so, or gray or whatever this is. So adding a little bit of extra lines for some hair-like texture is just a nice effect. If you are struggling to see your beard and where you're putting your lines, you can simply deselect those forearms and go ahead and add it in. Same thing that we've been doing, select where you would like to add some little accent lines. I'm gonna go ahead and do one right on in here. Select that pen tool. I'm gonna move this and I'm gonna move those anchors so that it kind of looks like it's in an S shape to match that. I'm gonna choose my textured line style for my stroke panel, come back to that brushes, add that right in. Bring this node in just a little bit. Okay, good. And then I'll do maybe one kind of going in a, let's do one that's going up over this V. So I'm gonna move those lines out just as we've been doing and apply all of my same settings again. I think I would like this node to be a little bit longer, so I'm going to bring that on in, kind of try and tap it in the center there. All right, and then I'll just add one more over here and we'll call it good. Now you do want to be relatively following the edges that you have. For these little accent lines, that just makes it all blend together really well. So there's my little accent lines for my beard, and you can actually clip those inside as well of that beard. Click and drag, touch the cursor to the beard's name, and voila. Now, I do still want to add some kind of stroke look to my beard so that it has just, you know, something that looks like hair, something that gives it some texture. You can do this by continuing to use your pen tool. And this time you're just going to create strokes that sort of follow these layers that you've created. So if we start up here underneath the nose, you definitely want to start underneath the nose, and then I'll bring it all the way down here. I'm going to select my node tool, curve it out so it kind of matches that whole curve. And now this time I'm actually going to come over and choose maybe like a markers brush. Choose a marker. Let's try one that's tapered off. That one's tapered off, so that's a good one to choose. I certainly don't want this black. I also want my nose above it, so I'm just going to bring this down below my nose for visual purposes. And now I can choose to add what color I would like for this. So I'm going to choose that open fill, and let's say I wanted to actually make this shade of gray, and instead wanted to change my beard itself to white. So now from here, I can either soften that gray by clicking back on that curve layer. I can choose to soften it a little bit. Maybe that's a little too strong of a gray. Or I could choose to adjust the opacity. Sometimes it's hard to get the perfect light shade, so adjusting the opacity can go a long way. Another brush stroke that might work is this one that it's called Marker Scribble. You can always click off to kind of see how it's looking and see if you like it. You could also continue to use that, the Frankentoon comic book inks ones that I like. Those are great ones. And let's see. Just seeing if there's any that I like really love here. That was the markers that's built in. Okay, this Gaucho's one could be a good option too. We're just trying to create some strokes to create texture. So actually, I think I am going to stick with this one. This is called Dry and Diluted Gouache. I'm hoping that I'm saying this correctly. I will adjust that one over. And that's good. You can choose to add the width if you want to just make it really wide, or you can keep it smaller. So you're going to add a few variances like this, and they can be lighter shades of gray. They could be like white. You can just keep playing with them until you are completely satisfied. I like to honestly duplicate some of mine where necessary. So I could duplicate that one here and just shorten it. Select that node tool, adjust that angle a little bit. so that it fits a little bit better like that. And then even just again, duplicate that and flip horizontal like we've been doing. And then take that node or that line that we've made and sort of place it in there. We can add another one in here, and this one we will select our curve tool and adjust this down in, let that taper off. So I'm just going to duplicate a few of these and really just allow them to fall into place wherever it makes the most sense for my beard. Now, don't get super consumed with the middle regions per se, because you're going to have objects and hands covering them, but maybe you will choose to have your gnome as a standalone, and in that regards, you may want to just have all of this filled out. So it is quick enough to simply duplicate each of these or use your pen tool to create different types of curves and have them working for you. Since I already have the weight and stuff together, I actually do really prefer to simply duplicate mine and then adjust however is necessary to get those end results. Okay, I think I could use like another short one right in here and then maybe one that curves out this way. So I will just select my pen tool for this one. I'll start up here again, bring that one here. Maybe down just a little bit more. Continue to choose those settings that we've got. And yeah, let's just add one more going or along this little swoop. Now I'm not specifically worrying about that last little swoop in the mustache because the hat is covering it. And that is always going to be the case. I'm probably never going to not have a hat on my gnome. But if you might want to make your gnome with different hats, like maybe you're looking to make him a St. Patrick's Day gnome or something along that lines, you could always choose to add another stroke in underneath that hat. So I'm going to right click and duplicate that last one, flip it horizontally since we did have the same shapes here, line it up. And now I want to bring all of those curve layers together. So let's select them, bring them down, select that whole group, choose group, name this my beard texture. And then I'm going to clip that inside of my beard. And I want to make sure that I bring it so it's all the way down below my lines, my accent lines there. And what's nice about this is now all of those beard textures are all grouped together so that you can equally adjust the opacity on them if you want. And you could even choose to duplicate that. Maybe you want to have 2 layers of texture with your beard. So that was like the soft gray, and then maybe this one you want to do a little darker gray, so they're already grouped together. You can actually make that darker, and then you could expand it out a little bit. You could even choose to use a different brush stroke. And then this one you could actually choose to lighten. There we go. So I lightened it and it created a duplicate that was darker, and we're getting this kind of effect over top. And then you can just reselect your little arms to add those in. Just like that, you have created your Doodle Gnome. Now, most importantly, make sure to go to File and Save As to be able to save your file. It's going to give you an option to save wherever you want to save it. You can choose that in your File Explorer and then give it a title and choose Save. That's going to be saving your working file so that you can always come back to this and make changes in the future. From here, you can add any kinds of fill. You can change the colors and you can create objects for the hand of your gnome. This is, of course, sort of a Christmas themed one, but I do have this pumpkin over here and these little hearts, so I could really grab any of these that I wanted. Let's grab my pumpkin. So I'm just going to right click and copy that one. And I will paste this here. And all I have to do is drag it underneath the arms, making sure that I've got that full length rectangle. That tells me that I'm underneath it. And boom. I can add some Halloween digital paper to the hat or the body, give this more of a Halloween theme, add some bats if I wanted to. Sky is the limit. You can create all the objects you can imagine for your gnome to handle. This is, of course, just one little idea. And then you can group together your arms with your objects, and that's going to give you the interchangeable ones. So as you create different little objects, you can create different groups of those arms so that they can be easily swapped out for your different let's get in place for your different ideas that you might come up with. Pretty easy to create different types of doodle style artwork. We do have 2 other tutorials, as I mentioned, on the YouTube channel. One is on a Santa face and the other one is on the pumpkin that's actually right here. Both are fun. It's such a great style. It's great for different types of sublimation designs and also very popular for creating things like door hangers. And you can use a lot of different brush types to be able to change up the texture of these and give something a more painted look. You can fill all of these with all the digital papers you can imagine. I love digital papers. It's one of the reasons I sign up for Creative Fabrica, is so that I have access to those, and you can clip them right inside. I just showed you how to clip things. So easy to add them inside of your hats or body and just swap them out for different themes. To export your whole set as a PNG, which I do recommend exporting as a PNG before you go to use it in something else. It just makes it easier. You don't have to worry about lines getting resized or anything. Like this one right here is a PNG. If we click on it, you can see that was my exported version from that other tutorial. But you can go ahead and export this by going to File and Export and exporting it as a PNG. You can just leave everything as it is. You can choose selection only if you have all of your layers selected or have created a group and have it selected. Again, File Save As is saving your working file just like with any other software, and exporting is exporting that specific PNG file type that you'll want for your sublimation designs. If you give this a try, I hope you'll show it off in SubThat because we would love to see it. And again, if you enjoyed this video lesson and following along and you want to learn how to do everything in depth, really dynamic shading and working all of the tools of this software, come sign up for the Affinity Designer Digital Graphic Design Masterclass. Use the code SubThat to save $30. It includes one-on-one support. It's over 100 hours of video content, and it's everything you could ever possibly want to know about using the software for your own sublimation designs. Thank you so much for joining us. Don't forget to click that subscribe button or join our Facebook group.